Okay, picking up rather where we left off, which is right here. Which, if you are listening to these videos, no time has passed. For me, time has passed. Anyway, during 1972, a pair of heavily modified OH-6As were utilized by the CIA via Air America for a covert wiretapping mission. The aircraft, dubbed 500P for Penetrator by Hughes, began as an ARPA project codenamed Main Street in 1968. ARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Okay. Development included test and training flights in Culver City, California, Hughes Airport, and at Area 51 in 1971. In order to reduce their acoustic signature, the helicopters N351X and N352X received a four-blade scissors-style tail rotor, later incorporated into the Hughes-designed AH-64 Apache, which I'm sure is familiar to many. There's the old Apache. A fifth rotor blade and reshaped rotor tips, a modified exhaust system, and various other performance-boosting modifications were done there. During June 1972, they were deployed to a secret base in southern Laos, PS-44, which must stand for Secret Base 44, where one of the helicopters was heavily damaged during a training mission late in the summer. On the night of the 5th to the 6th of December 1972, the remaining helicopter deployed a wiretap near Vinh, North Vietnam, Useful information provided from this wiretap was acted on by the United States on several occasions, such as during the Linebacker II campaign and Paris peace talks. Shortly thereafter, the aircraft were returned to the U.S., where they were dismantled and converted back to a standard configuration. They continued to be operated as such for a time. I've heard of the Linebacker II thing, but let's see. Sometimes referred to as the Christmas bombings was a strategic bombing campaign conducted by the United States against targets in northern Vietnam from December 18th to 29th, 1972. Yeah, I figured this was a long article. More than 20,000 tons of ordnance was dropped on military and industrial areas in Hanoi and Haiphong, and at least 1,624 civilians were killed. The operation was the final major military operation carried out by the U.S. during the conflict, and the largest bombing campaign involving heavy bombers since World War II. Is this, what did they call it? Like special, shoot, it's got that funky name and like things to help. People nowadays are seeing the damage from it. I forget what it's called. I'm sure someone's like, "No, you're thinking of something wrong or something else." It's like Special Agent Orange. Is that what I'm thinking of? Special Agent Orange, Agent Orange. There's no special. Okay. Was used by the U.S. military as part of an herbicidal warfare program, Operation Ranch Hand. Okay, maybe it's a completely separate thing. Regardless, good job, U.S. killing civilians all the time. We have sins to pay for. Okay, Vietnam. Yeah, during the early 1970s, Soviet supplied SA-7 Grail shoulder-launched anti-aircraft missiles emerged amongst North Vietnamese troops. One hit could down a Loach, potentially dealing fatal damage before its crew were aware that they were under heavy fire. Aware that they were under fire, not heavy fire. SA-7 Grail. I think that was in a number of video games, thus popularizing its use with the youths. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this has indeed been in a video game or 12. RB. Okay, just a bunch of flags. Cool. Go back. There we are. Okay, all-American rotorcraft in the theater had to be operated more cautiously following this development, that being that of the shoulder-launched anti-aircraft missile. Reportedly, 964 out of the 1,422 OH-6As produced for the U.S. Army were destroyed in the Vietnam theater, the majority of these losses being a result of hostile action, typically ground fire. Towards the end of the conflict, the replacement of the OH-6 by the Bell OH-58 Kiowa was imminent across nearly all U.S. Army units. Some crews argued that the Kiowa was nowhere near as nimble as the OH-6. However, this transition proceeded while scouting doctrine was changed to emphasis operations from greater distances. The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment and Task Force 160. Following the April 1980 failure of Operation Eagle Claw, the attempted rescue of American hostages in Tehran, it was determined that the military lacked aircraft and crews who were trained and prepared to perform special operations missions. To remedy this shortcoming, the Army began developing a special aviation task force to prepare for the next attempt to rescue the hostages, Operation Honey Badger. Let's look real quick. Any picture there? Oh, look, pictures. Operation Eagle Claw, known as Operation Tabas, in Iran, was a failed operation by the U.S. Armed Forces, ordered by Jimmy Carter, to attempt the rescue of 52 embassy staff held captive at the Embassy of the United States, Tehran, on the 24th of April, 1980. And Operation Honey Badger, or Operation Credible Sport, was a joint project of the U.S. military in the second half of 1980 to prepare for a second rescue attempt of the hostages held in Iran. The concept included using a Lockheed C-130 Hercules airlifter modified with the addition of rocket engines to make it a short takeoff and landing aircraft. Okay. Man, can't imagine what it was like to be one of those hostages. Anyway, so they began developing Special Aviation Task Force to prepare for this second rescue attempt, that being Operation Honey Badger. The architects of the task force identified the need for a small helicopter to land in the most restrictive locations, and that was also easily transported on Air Force transport aircraft. They chose the OH-6A Scout helicopter to fill that role, and it became known as the Little Bird compared to the other aircraft in the task force, the MH-60 and the MH-47. MH-60 shown here, the Black Hawk. I'm sure we've heard of the movie Black Hawk Down. That is a mean-looking helicopter. And the MH-57, the Boeing Chinook. Still see those tandem rotors flying. Oh, I don't know if it's this exact helicopter, but you still see tandem rotors being flown around nowadays. As a separate part of the project, armed OH-6As were being developed at Fort Rucker, Alabama. The pilots selected to fly the OH-6A helicopters came from the 229th Attack Helicopter Battalion and were sent to the Mississippi Army National Guard's Army Aviation Support Facility, AASF, at Gulfport, Mississippi, for 2 weeks of qualification training in the rotorcraft. When the training was completed, C-141 Starlifter airlifters transported both rotorcraft and crews to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, for 2 weeks of mission training. The mission training consisted of loading onto C-130 Hercules transport aircraft, which would then transport them to forward staging areas over routes as long as 1,000 nautical miles. The armed OH-6s from Fort Rucker joined the training program in the fall of 1980. Here is a picture of a C-141 Starlifter and a C-130 Hercules, which I think a number of people have probably seen if they've seen many airships. Operation Honey Badger was canceled after the hostages were released on the 20th of January, 1981. And for a short while, it looked as if the task force would be disbanded and the personnel returned to their former units. I apologize if it just got loud. Our AC unit kicked on, and I am in the basement where AC units like to live. Anyway, so looked like the task force would be disbanded and the personnel returned to their former units. But the Army decided that it would be more prudent to keep the unit in order to be prepared for future contingencies. The task force, which had been designated as Task Force 158, was soon formed into the 160th Aviation Battalion. The OH-6A helicopters used for transporting personnel became the MH-6 aircraft of the Light Assault Company, and the armed OH-6As became the AH-6 aircraft of the Light Attack Company. Look at that, they got a little Pegasus with wings. Um, on the 1st of October, 1986, to help meet the increasing demands for support, the 1st 245th Aviation Battalion from the Oklahoma National Guard, which had 25 AH-6 and 23 UH-1 helicopters, was placed under the operational control of the 160th. The 1st 245th Aviation Battalion enlisted were sent to the Mississippi Army National Guard's Army Aviation Support Facility at Gulfport, Mississippi. Guess what? For 2 weeks of qualification training in the aircraft. The following 2-week mission was to Yuma for night operation training. The AH-MH Little Birds were lifted by a single C-5 Galaxy and 2 C-130 Hercules, along with all support kits for the battalion. Crews trained side by side with the 160th for all operational concepts. The 1st 245th modified infantry night vision goggles and worked to develop the necessary skills for rapid deployment with Little Birds and C-130s. And here are troops sitting on an MH-6M Little Bird. They look ready for action. I don't think it's right that we have these people killing other people. Variants. We've got a number of variants. I'm not going to read them all. Let me see if there's anything notable. This one had a different turboshaft engine. The OH-6A had an Allison T63A5A. A couple actually with different Allison turboshaft engines in it. One with a 5-rotor blade. One made by Kawasaki, as we've heard. One used for Naval Test Pilot School test pilot training, modified to carry weapons. Let's look at these pictures. The TH-6B Cayuse helicopter takes off for a training flight from NAS Patuxent River, Maryland. Hey, that's kind of close to me. November Alpha Sierra. Cool. A Kawasaki-built OH-6D with 5-bladed main rotor. I like those colors. It's pretty. Cool. Military and government operators. I suppose I'll just say the countries. We've got Spain with their Navy, the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force, United States has some notably in the Atlanta Police Department, the Chilton County Sheriff, Gainesville Police Department, and the Army Aviation. Great. Former operators, we've got the Dominican Republic, Denmark, Japan, Malta, Nicaragua, Republic of China, Taiwan, and the United States. And here are some more pictures. Spanish naval OH-6M helicopter on liftoff. Is that a dark blue or black or gray? I cannot actually tell. Cool. A Japanese OH-6D at the JGSDF, which I've said that acronym a lot before. I forget exactly. Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force. I don't remember. Danish Army 500M. Kind of plain looking. Well, I shouldn't say it's plain looking. It's helicopter looking, you know what I'm saying? Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force. Okay. Specifications. 2 people for the crew. Capacity, we have 2 seated passengers or 4 on the floor with rear seats folded and removed. It's a 30-foot 30-foot helicopter, including the rotors. It sits at 8 feet 1.5 inches to the top of the rotor hub, Empty weight is 1,229 pounds. Gross weight is 2,400 pounds. The max it can take off with is 2,700 pounds. It holds a total of 61 and a half US gallons of gasoline. Well, actually, I shouldn't say gasoline. I don't know what type of fuel it takes. But it takes that much fuel in two 50% self sealing bladder tanks under the rear cabin floor. Power plant, it's got an Allison T63 A58 turboshaft engine, derated to derated from 236 kilowatts to 188 kilowatts for takeoff, and 160 kilowatts in maximum continuous usage. The main rotor diameter is 26 feet. The main rotor area, unimportant, unless you really care about helicopters, and if you do, you probably are not watching this because you probably already know. Its cruising speed at maximum cruising speed at sea level is 150 miles per hour, and its maximum range at sea level, wait. In order to maximize its range at sea level, it goes 133 miles per hour. The never exceed speed is 150. Its range, just in general, is 380 miles. Ferry range, I don't know what that means honestly, but it's 1,560 roughly miles with 1,300 pounds of fuel. Service ceiling goes up to 15,800 feet. Rate of climb is 2,070 feet per minute. It's a couple feet per minute. The armament, provision for packaged armament on port side, including an XM27 7.62 millimeter, so 0.3-inch gun, machine gun, with 2 to 4,000 rounds of ammunition, or some fancy grenade launcher, an XM75. And well, you look at that. That's it. It actually wasn't that stiff of an article. Kind of fun information in there. Um, if war is fun, I mean, the details are certainly interesting, and all the stories involved in this. The unfortunate thing is that most of the stories involve the proximity of death, and I think that war is generally an abomination and should be avoided at all costs. But alas, humanity's history is riddled with it. See you in the next one.